You pick up a lot when you work as a waiter during the holiday party season. People get so caught up in their celebrating that they barely notice you slipping through the crowd with trays of fancy snacks and glasses of bubbly. That means you hear all sorts of interesting conversations. Of course, there is always some snide gossip and sharp-tongued comments, but you never expect to witness something so raw, something soaked in regret and shame. It all started when a woman in white showed up fashionably late. The moment she stepped through the front door, the people who noticed her first fell quiet. That silence quickly gave way to hushed whispers as guests started speculating about who she was and what connection she had to the host. She moved without a sound, her chin slightly lowered, her eyes hidden beneath long lashes. The flowing dress she wore draped just past her knees, one shoulder fully covered, while the other was bare, revealing pale, almost translucent skin. Silver shimmered in the folds of the fabric, and fine glitter dusted her dark curls, which cascaded down her back like a waterfall. A few strands hung forward, partially veiling her face, but I could still make out a delicate nose and lips that curved in the faintest smile. She passed by me so gracefully that she did not even stir the air, leaving an odd stillness behind her. She drifted through the warmly lit foyer and blended seamlessly into the party crowd in the main living area. Though I lost sight of her, I quickly realized that no matter where she went, people took notice. At the entrance to a small study near the front of the house, two older women stood stiffly with pursed lips and their noses high in the air. It was a prime spot to keep track of who was coming and going. Their sharp eyes flicked to each guest passing by, while two equally drab men lingered nearby with their hands shoved into their pockets. I moved in casually, offering a tray of appetizers, just as one of the women, her perfectly styled hair stiff as a helmet, leaned toward the other and asked, "Do you know who she is?" The second woman, eyes fixed on a glimpse of white fabric across the room, shook her head. "Not at all. We should find Callista and ask." "What does it matter?" one of the men chimed in. He was probably the husband of the woman with the lacquered hair, judging by the way she frowned when he speared a cranberry-covered meatball with a toothpick. She sighed in irritation when sauce dripped down his chin as he shoved it in his mouth. Definitely the look of a wife long used to putting up with nonsense. She had to submit a guest list to the homeowners association, the other woman stated firmly, slapping her own husband's hand away when he tried to grab a meatball. That way, the gate guard would know who was allowed in. "Well then," the first man said, as he wiped his chin with a napkin, "she must be on that list." "She had better be," his wife muttered. "We are exclusive. We do not just let anyone wander around here. We should find Callista and ask," the second woman repeated with a sour expression. "She is not exactly the most attentive host. She did not even greet us at the door. Some assistant did that instead." The mysterious woman was next noticed in the dining room, where a long table was piled high with sweets, savory appetizers, rich dips, and elegant charcuterie boards for guests to graze on. I was working my way around, sweeping up crumbs and making sure trays were refilled, when I overheard people talking about her again. "Who is that woman in white?" a lively, broad-shouldered guy asked, as he strode into a group of younger guests, throwing his arms around two of them. His bright reindeer sweater, decorated with ribbons and jingling bells, stood out against the more refined suits and dresses. "She smells awful, like damp earth and body odor." "What? Did you go up and sniff her, Rory?" a petite girl teased, flashing a smirk and a cute dimple. "No, but you cannot miss it," Rory said, with a puzzled frown. "She is stunning, so you do not expect her to stink." "Are you sure it was her?" another girl asked. Pretty sure, Rory said, scrunching up his face. I caught a whiff, saw a flicker of white, and then she was gone. Maybe she ran off when she saw that sweater, one of the guys joked, nudging Rory. Did you wear that thing to the company holiday party too? Grinning, Rory wiggled his shoulders, making the bells jingle. Sure did. Callista skipped that mandatory fun, so I figured I would treat her to this masterpiece now. But I have not seen her yet. A sleek, dark-eyed woman shifted her weight, tilting her hips as she leaned into the conversation, drawing everyone's attention. Honestly, she said, I'm surprised she is even throwing this party. She has been such a mess at work lately, missing meetings, forgetting deadlines, shows up late, leaves early. I even heard the partners had to redo a big client presentation she was supposed to handle last week. Well, she's not really hosting it, is she? Scoffed a polished redhead, her glossy curls perfectly in place. Amelia did all the work. The petite girl blushed. I told her I did not mind. It was last minute, and she needed help pulling everything together. Those bright stars always burn out, one of the guys chimed in. They come in hot, ready to take on the world, and then, boom, they crash and burn. Callista has been one of the top performers since she joined the company 3 years ago, Amelia defended. She works hard, puts in the hours. She has just been struggling lately. I think she might be sick. Really? Rory asked, dropping his arms from around his friends. His usual cheerful energy dimmed a little. Hope it is nothing serious. Amelia sighed, looking down. She asked me to schedule a doctor's appointment for her after the new year. I was not going to say anything, but she has lost so much weight, the redhead added. Her face looks hollow, and there are always dark circles under her eyes. And she is such a mess now, the dark-eyed woman threw in. She used to be so polished, so effortlessly stylish, always looked classy without trying too hard. Exactly the kind of presence you want in the office. Now, I would not be shocked if she rolled in wearing stained sweatpants and flip-flops. I had just started making my way through the living room again, offering fresh drinks, when the woman in white was noticed once more. Near the fireplace, where a pair of fuzzy red stockings hung over the roaring fire, 3 tall, elegant women sipped their themed cocktails, perfectly posed beside the lavishly decorated Christmas tree. Did you see that woman in white? Asked one of them, a striking platinum blonde. Another, her golden blonde hair twisted into a flawless updo, glanced around the room with a lazy roll of her eyes as she lifted her drink to her lips. Where? What woman? Over there, the platinum blonde gestured vaguely toward the back of the room. Oh, I cannot see her now. She rose onto her tiptoes, scanning the crowd. Maybe she went down the hall. I swear, we crossed paths a second ago, and this chill hit me out of nowhere. Made me shiver. It was weird. The third woman, an ash blonde, scoffed. That Santa's sparkler is making you dramatic. How many have you had? The platinum blonde giggled. This is only my second. She lifted her flute of bubbly red cocktail, garnished with a sugared rosemary sprig, in a toast. Forget your mystery woman, the honey blonde waved dismissively. I am more interested in where Callista is hiding. I talked to her yesterday, and she was totally out of it. She did not even remember at first that tonight was her own party. She's not been herself lately, the ash blonde added, perfecting a practice pout. I stopped by last week, and her whole house was locked up. She only answered the door after I texted her like 5 times, telling her it was me outside. And when she finally did open up, she was so jumpy. The honey blonde leaned in, lowering her voice. Her mum and sister are worried too. I talked to them earlier, and they said she barely responds to their calls or messages anymore. She does not even go to their famous Sunday brunches. The platinum blonde gasped. No, their brunches are the best. Callista never missed one. She even brought me along a couple of times when we lived together in the sorority house. The honey blonde nodded knowingly. It sounds like depression. She might even be hurting herself, she added, hesitating just a little. Her family noticed scratches on her arms, like claw marks, but she does not have a cat, and she is not around anyone who does. The ash blonde tisked and shook her head. I hope this is not like that summer we interned together after college. She was a wreck by the time it was over. She started off strong, really impressing the higher-ups. Even got invited to some exclusive weekend retreat with the senior execs. I was so jealous, but when she came back, it was like something had changed. She was moody, withdrawn, just different. The platinum blonde paused, her drink halfway to her lips. Wait, wasn't that the same summer that girl went missing? Yes, the ash blonde said, her voice dropping slightly. She was a real beauty. Dark hair, big doe eyes, full lips. They found her body on the retreat property, way out in the woods. She was naked and badly beaten. The report said she died from exposure, but animals had gotten to her before they found her. It was awful. Callista always swore she did not know anything about it, the honey blonde murmured. But you think she saw something? The platinum blonde's eyes widened. Before she could say anything, the ash blonde reached out and grabbed her elbow, pulling her in closer. I heard the police question some of the men at that retreat, she whispered. The ones who liked to throw private after parties. They thought maybe that girl was at one of them and things got out of hand. You know how powerful men are. They think they can do whatever they want, to whoever they want. The platinum blonde let out a small gasp, her voice rising in disbelief. But Callista isn't the type to go to those things. She's ambitious, sure, a total go-getter. But if she saw something, she would have said something. I don't know. The ash blonde gave a casual shrug. Callista really wanted to impress the senior leadership. If she saw them take that girl off somewhere, or overheard something later, she might have kept quiet. The honey blonde tilted her head, considering. You really think that's what happened? Whatever went down that weekend, she wasn't the same afterward, the ash blonde said. Her work took a hit, but somehow she still got glowing recommendations at the end of the summer. She told me she used them to land this job. The party was winding down, and I had made my way upstairs as part of the cleanup. With a bus bin balanced on my hip, I moved from room to room, collecting empty glasses and abandoned plates. That's when it hit me. A sharp, overwhelming stench of decaying garbage and damp earth. I wrinkled my nose, glancing around for the source. And then I saw her, the woman in white. She stood in the doorway of a darkened bedroom, her body turned toward the shadows inside. But her head was twisted at the waist, peering back at me. Her dark eyes peeped coyly over her shoulder, the lower half of her face obscured. A sudden shout shattered the eerie stillness. "Hey!" I jolted as Amelia stormed past me, her footsteps heavy with purpose. "Hey, you can't go in there. That's Callista's room." Rory trailed behind her, but he hesitated beside me. The woman in white remained framed in the doorway, until she didn't. Her figure wavered, flickering like a distorted reflection on rippling water. And then, in an instant, she was gone. Amelia froze mid-step. I stood rooted in place, struggling to process what I had just seen. Our wide-eyed gazes met for a brief second before she cautiously stepped forward. She had barely crossed the threshold when a blood-curdling scream tore through the air. The bus bin slipped from my grasp, crashing to the floor as I bolted toward the room, Rory right behind me. Inside, the bedroom was empty, but in the far corner of the walk-in closet, curled into a trembling ball, was a thin, naked woman, Callista. She rocked back and forth, muttering to herself. Around her, a shredded gold party dress lay in tatters, and looming behind her, her presence thick and oppressive, was the woman in white. Amelia dropped to her knees just outside the closet. Moving slowly, cautiously, she reached out toward Callista, her voice barely above a whisper. "Callista, come here." The woman in white's head snapped up, her gaze locking onto us, her mouth twisted, stretching hideously, gaping like a dark abyss. She slithered her arms around Callista's shivering form, pulling her close. Then, slowly, deliberately, her delicate hands morphed. Long, elegant fingers became gnarled, twisted claws, their razor-sharp tips sinking deep into Callista's flesh. Callista shivered violently. She looked toward Amelia, but didn't seem to truly see her. Instead, her head tilted slightly, as if listening to the presence holding her. "I'm sorry," she whimpered. "It wasn't my fault. It wasn't." The woman in white let out a low, guttural growl. The sound slithered down my spine, raising goosebumps along my arms. Then, in a sudden, vicious motion, she raked her claws down Callista's arms. Thin red lines welled up where the sharpened tip sliced through her skin. Callista gasped. Okay, she choked out. It was my fault, but they made me do it. They made me. They told me to take care of it, to deal with it. I thought you were already dead. Otherwise, I would have called for help." The woman in white gave no response. Instead, with a violent shove, she hurled Callista forward. She landed hard, sprawled on her stomach, gasping for breath. And then, a high-pitched, keening screech filled the air. The woman in white pounced, dragging her claws down Callista's exposed back. Callista screamed, her face twisting in agony as the three of us shouted for the ghostly figure to stop. "Please," Callista panted, her voice raw with terror. "Please, I'm sorry. I just wanted you gone." Her breath hitched as sobs racked her body. "I stripped you. I burned your clothes. I left you in the woods. There, I admit it," she gasped. "You were going to tell, and it would have ruined everything. I had already given them so much, let them do so much. I needed them." Her voice cracked. "All you had to do was go along with them. Let them touch you. Let them have their fun. But you wouldn't. You just kept crying, kept pushing back." Her breath shuddered out in uneven gasps. "That's why they beat you so badly," she whispered, "because you wouldn't give in." The woman in white's grotesque mouth twisted, stretching into a monstrous, misshapen parody of a smile. Then, moving with eerie, unnatural grace, she reached down, curling her bony fingers into Callista's blonde hair, and yanked. Callista's head snapped back, her neck fully exposed. "Please," she begged, choking on panicked sobs. "Please forgive me." The woman in white's pallid hand moved slowly. Once, twice, a gentle, ghostly caress against Callista's throat. Then, before any of us could react, she struck. In one swift, fluid motion, she slid a claw across Callista's neck. The blade-like tip cut clean. Callista's breath hitched. A soft, strangled sound escaped her lips. And then, silence.